They say festivals are meant to be bright, full of laughter, color, and celebration. But sometimes, they only make the silence louder. This was supposed to be a week of music and lights. Yet, every glance felt heavier than words, and every smile hid something unspoken. Between teasing hands, quiet stares, and feelings pushed to the edge, lines begin to blur. This is the part where tension tightens, where almost becomes dangerous. Welcome to part 2, where the truth gets closer, but courage is still tested. Don't forget to subscribe to Sweet Serenity DL. I never realized how chaotic anticipation could feel until the week of the Ridgeway Festival began. The air in the boarding academy smelled of chalk dust, paper, and something sweet like caramel and cotton candy pretending to be invisible among the corridors. Students were buzzing, posters plastered the walls in bright, clashing colors, and every announcement seemed louder than it needed to be, as if the entire school was conspiring to drown out thought itself. I drifted between classrooms and clubrooms, trying not to be noticed, but notice always found me. Someone had pinned a list of student responsibilities for the festival on the bulletin board, and my name was scribbled under stage decoration team. My stomach sank, partly because it meant I would be working closely with others I'd rather avoid, and partly because it meant I would inevitably see him Miro at some point during this chaos. I caught sight of him in the art room, standing near the supply table, hands buried in his pockets, as usual. His eyes scanned the room, lingering on the sketches for the banners, but he didn't look at me. Not really. Not like before. That same calm, almost untouchable demeanor. I felt my chest tighten. Every step I took toward him felt measured, as if the space between us was no longer just physical, but something I could feel pressing on me, invisible and heavy. Then Lara appeared. She had that smile again, the one that could be charming if it weren't designed to wound. She leaned casually against the doorway, hair perfectly in place, eyes sweeping the room until they found me. And just like that, she had made a game of it. Her gaze lingered on me in a way that screamed, "I own your attention." My stomach twisted. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, voice soft enough to seem casual but sharp enough to slice. She walked past me slowly, deliberately brushing against my shoulder as she passed. I flinched, trying not to, trying to remind myself that her touch meant nothing, but my body refused to obey my mind. And of course, Miro noticed. He paused mid-step, his head tilting just slightly, enough that I felt exposed. He didn't say anything, he never did, but I felt the weight of his gaze on me like a presence I couldn't escape, silent but accusatory, calm but burning all the same. I hated that it hurt this much. I hated that Lara was capable of making me feel like a pawn in some petty game while he watched. The rest of the day blurred into preparation chaos. Dinners were hosted, booths were set up, and glitter stuck to everything it touched, including me. And through it all, Lara kept slipping in and out of my space, whispering things that weren't necessary, touching my arm when she passed, leaning close when I knelt to tape a poster. Every time she did, I could feel Miro's attention snap toward me, just like a taut string pulled tight. I wanted to tell him, "Please, don't let her make me seem like I want this," but the words caught in my throat every single time. By late afternoon, exhaustion hit, but the tension hadn't eased. Miro was across the gymnasium now, arranging lights for the stage, still calm, still observant, still holding himself like nothing could touch him. And yet, I caught him watching me just enough to know that he saw every interaction with Lara, every forced laugh, every touch she offered, every glance. He didn't intervene, he didn't speak, he just watched. And the silence between us had become unbearable, a chasm filled with everything we weren't saying. I wanted to shout at him. I wanted to tell him that I hated her teasing, that I hated that she had the power to make me feel both flustered and trapped. But more than that, I wanted to tell him that none of it mattered, that it was only ever him I was aware of even when I didn't say it aloud. My own feelings were heavy with their own frustration, because I wasn't sure how to navigate the line between wanting him to care and resenting the fact that he didn't act. And then Lara, of course, decided to push further. Standing near the table where I was arranging decorations, she leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You know, Miro seems tense when you're around. Do you like him, or something?" She smiled, a small, calculated tilt of lips that made my skin crawl. My hands froze, glitter sticking to my palms, and I realized that every eye in the room was subtly tracking our exchange. Miro's head snapped slightly toward us, expression unreadable but sharp. He didn't move toward me, didn't intervene. I wanted to glare at him, to scream internally, "Why aren't you doing anything? Can't you see what she's doing?" But I stayed silent, too aware that Lara would only laugh at me if I reacted. The day ended with banners half hung and glitter everywhere. And yet, no one left, because the festival didn't just belong to the decorations. It belonged to every glance, every tension-filled moment, every almost spoken confession. I left that day with my hoodie soaked in sweat, my arms sticky with glue, and my mind heavier than it had been in weeks. Miro had watched, had not acted, and I had done nothing. And I realized, as I trudged back to my dorm that night, that the festival wasn't just coming. It had already begun, and Lara's games were only the opening act. The morning of the festival arrived with a strange energy, like the air itself was vibrating with anticipation. The entire academy smelled of fresh paint, frying snacks, and the faint sweetness of candy floss. I walked through the courtyard, and the sunlight caught the banners we had struggled to hang the day before, making them glow like they were alive. But despite the brightness, my chest felt heavy. My heartbeat was loud, echoing in my ears, because I knew Miro would be here. And because I knew Lara would be watching. I spotted him immediately, leaning against a railing near the entrance of the main hall, arms folded, posture perfect as always. He wasn't looking at me, but he was watching, in that subtle way he had mastered, like he could see the moment before it happened and the moment after it ended. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting. Every step I took toward the festival felt like stepping into a spotlight, and I hated that Lara had set the stage for this silent showdown. And there she was, of course she was, Lara, in a crisp, light dress that caught the sunlight, her hair perfectly waved over her shoulders. Her eyes swept the crowd until they found me, and the tiny smirk she wore sent a shiver down my spine. She strolled past me slowly, brushing my arm just enough to leave a trace of warmth, not caring that Miro's attention snapped like a taut string. "Zeyne," she said, voice soft but laced with something sharp, "you're working too hard. Maybe you need a break." She tilted her head and laughed lightly, like a whisper only I could hear. Every ounce of that laugh was designed to pull me out of myself, to distract me, to make me falter. I clenched my fists, trying to steady my voice, and I replied, "I'm fine." Miro's gaze followed every interaction. I could feel it like a weight pressing on my back, silent but heavy, accusatory but calm. And it hurt in ways I couldn't name, because it wasn't just jealousy. I think it was disappointment. Disappointment that I didn't stop her, that I let her play with me like a puppet while he stood there, quiet, untouchable. The festival started in earnest, music, laughter, announcements echoing across the grounds. Students filled the booths, carrying plates of food, cotton candy, and drinks that were too sweet. And everywhere I looked, I felt the tension stretch between us. Every glance at Miro felt like a question I wasn't allowed to answer. Every smile I forced toward Lara felt like a betrayal. She wasn't subtle. At one point, she leaned close while I was helping with the drink booth, brushing her hair behind my shoulder, whispering, "Do you think he even notices when I'm around? Or are you just invisible to him?" My chest tightened. My hands froze, cups in my grip trembling slightly. I wanted to shout at Miro, to tell him, "Please, notice what she's doing. Please, care enough to intervene." But he didn't. He watched from across the hall, his jaw tight, eyes dark with a quiet storm. And then it happened, that tiny, fleeting moment that made the world shrink around us. A student bumped into me accidentally, sending my tray of drinks wobbling. Instinctively, I grabbed it, catching the glasses before they fell. Lara's hand brushed mine by accident as she laughed at the scene. Miro's head turned sharply, and our eyes met for a fraction of a second. Something passed between us in that second: anger, longing, regret, maybe fear. But before I could reach out, she smiled at me, and he looked away again. By afternoon, I was exhausted. Not from the work or the no's, but from the weight of every unspoken word, every glance I wanted to give but couldn't. Lara continued her subtle games, laughing too loudly when Miro looked at me, brushing against my arm when I turned my back. She was merciless, and I felt cornered, like every action of mine was a stage and I was the only actor who didn't know the script. I caught a moment of calm when the festival fireworks were scheduled. The sky darkened slowly, warm orange and purple bleeding into each other. Miro stood near the edge of the courtyard, silhouetted against the setting sun, quiet as ever. I wanted to cross the crowd, to tell him that none of this mattered, that it was only ever him I was aware of. But Lara had inserted herself between us once more, linking her arm through mine with a smile that mocked every thought I had of being free. And yet, even with her there, I could feel Miro's gaze, sharp, observant, burning. It was almost painful, the intensity of it. He didn't speak, he didn't move, but the silence said more than any words ever could. I could see the struggle in his posture, the conflict in his shoulders. He wanted to act, I knew it. But he didn't, he couldn't, or maybe he just wouldn't. The fireworks began, bright, loud, stunning bursts across the night sky. The crowd gasped and cheered. Lara laughed too, pressing closer, whispering teasingly, "Do you think he'll ever make a move? Or are you just going to watch him from afar forever?" My chest tightened. I felt like I was about to break in 100 invisible pieces. Miro, standing a few feet away, did nothing, just watching. Watching me be cornered, watching the tension unravel in ways I wanted desperately to control, but couldn't. And as the final fireworks lit the sky, illuminating the courtyard, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. The festival was over, but the tension between Miro and me had reached a point where there was no going back. Every moment Lara had orchestrated, every glance we had stolen, had brought us closer to the edge. And I knew, deep down, that the next moment, if it came, could finally break everything wide open. The festival was over, but the air still felt thick with the echoes of laughter, music, and cheers. The courtyard, now littered with scraps of paper and discarded cups, felt strangely empty, yet somehow heavier than it had all day. My hoodie smelled faintly of caramel from the cotton candy, my hands sticky from handling decorations and drinks, and my heart felt like it had been stretched to thin, like the strings of a harp pulled taut and trembling, ready to snap. I found myself lingering near the back stairwell to the rooftop cafe. The place had been abandoned since we set up decorations for the festival, yet it felt like the only refuge from the chaos, the only corner of the world where I could breathe. And of course, as if he knew I'd come, Miro was already there, leaning against the railing, arms crossed, jaw tight. He wasn't looking at me, at least not at first, but I could feel his presence like gravity, pulling at the edges of my focus. Before I could think, Lara appeared again. God, she always appeared when you least wanted her. She sauntered up, hair catching the last rays of the setting sun, eyes glinting with a mix of mischief and calculation. "Zeyne," she said softly, stepping closer, "I thought you'd want to celebrate after all that hard work." Her hand brushed against mine accidentally, worn and deliberate, making my chest twist. Miro stiffened. I could see the muscles in his jaw flexing, but he stayed silent in a way that was almost cruel. He watched, he always watched, and Lara, of course, seemed to notice it, her smile widening just slightly, as if she was pleased to watch him simmer in quiet anger. My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag, wishing I could make him move, say something, anything that would remind him that none of this mattered, none of her games mattered, only us. "You really should relax," Lara continued, leaning close, her voice low, teasing, "It's just a festival. Don't take everything so seriously." She laughed softly, brushing a lock of hair behind my shoulder. My stomach twisted, half in frustration, half in something else I couldn't name. I wanted to push her away, but I also wanted Miro to act to notice me, a way that had nothing to do with her. Finally, I couldn't hold it anymore. "Lara," I said, voice low but firm, "stop." It came out sharper than I intended, and she blinked, pretending to be surprised. "Stop trying to, I don't know, manipulate every moment. This isn't a game." My heart raced, words tumbling over each other. I couldn't even look at Miro, afraid that if I did, I'd crumble completely. And then, just like that, the air shifted. Miro stepped closer. Just a half step, just enough that I could feel the weight of him beside me, the warmth of his presence like it had been there all along but I'd been blind to it. "Zeyne," he said softly, voice low and quiet, so quiet that only I could hear, "why didn't you say anything?" His eyes were dark, searching, demanding, but gentle all at once. I froze. I wanted to scream, to tell him everything I'd felt, every stolen glance, every heartbeat, every almost touch that had built between us. The words failed me. My throat tightened. And Lara was still there, pretending to be a spectator, pretending to be harmless, but the sharp gleam in her eyes betrayed her. "Because," I started, my voice barely audible, trembling with the weight of confession, "because I didn't know if you would." I couldn't finish. I didn't have to. He understood. His hand, careful, deliberate, brushed against mine, the smallest, most tentative touch, and it sent a shiver straight through me. Lara's expression faltered for the first time all day. "Really?" she asked, voice light but brittle, as if she suddenly realized she had no power over what was happening. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was too busy staring at Miro, trying to memorize every detail, the way the shadows softened his jaw, the quiet storm in his eyes, the way his fingers lingered near mine as if afraid to cross an invisible line. I've always," Miro's voice cracked slightly, low and hesitant, a confession buried under years of silence, "liked you, Zeyne." And I didn't. I couldn't say anything before. My heart leapt. Every unspoken thought, every moment of silence, every time I had thought he didn't care, it had all been wrong. I swallowed hard, tears prickling the corners of my eyes. I feel the same," I whispered. "I felt the same for a long time. I just didn't know how to tell you without ruining everything." He smiled, small and vulnerable, and finally closed the space between us, brushing his thumb along my hand, gentle but certain. For the first time in months, I felt grounded, like the weight of everything, the rumors, Lara, the festival chaos, had fallen away. Lara, standing a few feet away, gave a forced smile and nodded slowly, almost as if conceding defeat. I didn't care. I only cared about the warmth spreading through me, the sense of relief, the realization that the silence between us had finally broken. The festival lights shimmered around us, and I realized then that nothing would ever be quite the same. Not the academy, not the rumors, not even Lara's games. We had almost confessed so many times before, but this time, it was real. Almost, because even as I held Miro's hand, I knew there were still layers to unravel. Secrets that hadn't been spoken, feelings that had yet to be tested, and the knowledge that the world outside this rooftop, our friends, our peers, the relentless gossip, would try to pull us apart again. But for now, in this fragile moment, nothing mattered. Not the chaos, not the festival, not even Lara. Only him, only us. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the next confession wouldn't have to be almost anymore.